Welcome to another time on Indigenous Hands, the Indigenous Voices. It is my pleasure to bring you another wonderful episode in this channel. I want to congratulate you, all of you that have been following this program for the past 1 year and a few months now. I want to give you Boza. You've been awesome. You've been so great. You are the inspiration. You are the motivation that this program is still going on. Today, it is my pleasure to give you one awesome development. You remember last week, I said, I'm not going to let the cat out of the bag yet. And today, I'm going to do that. I promise you. All right. So today I am giving you an information about what took place a couple of days ago. And what is that? You won't believe it. Okay. All right. It is so awesome to know that the work we're doing here is gaining a lot of weight, is making a lot of waves. On Saturday, the 12th of June 2021, Esteli signed an MOU with Zambia Deaf Society, ZDS, to document the indigenous Zambian Sign Language. That is an awesome breakthrough. And I gotta tell you, this is one of the things that we have been talking about in this program, the need for indigenous deaf communities, the need for indigenous sign languages of African deaf communities to be documented, developed, and used for scientific discourse. You might be asking, why Zambia? Of course, that is a good question. Before you ask that question, I want you to listen to this. Having said that, today it excites me to discuss the sign language situation in Zambia. I want to let you know that Zambia is one of the countries that we have been collecting data from, and one of the countries that we also have interest in, just like we have interest in Gabon. And our interest in Zambia is not unconnected with the fact that Zambia is one of those countries in Africa that has something you might describe as a chaotic linguistic environment in terms of the sign language situation. One of the things you will know about the sign language situation in Zambia is that the ZSL, which is supposed to be the Zambian sign language, like any other African country, is not a recognized sign language in the constitution. And so I believe that that is one of the things that the country will also fight for. And so the ZSL is a little bit complex in that the language has the vocabulary of the indigenous, which is, sometimes also called local, and the vocabulary of the American Sign Language, the vocabulary of British Sign Language, and if possible, or if care is not taken, the vocabulary of some other foreign-based sign languages that have found their way in Zambia. And another thing that is unique that possibly may have differentiated Zambia from Nigeria is that Zambia did not see Andrew Foster. Dr. Andrew Foster did not work in Zambia, but as much as that is a fact, American Sign Language finds itself in Zambia, which is somewhat, questionable and maybe funny as it might be. So, but Zambians believe that the ZSL, which is the Zambian Sign Language, is not ASL, unlike what you might find in the Nigerian deaf community, where some deaf people believe that their sign language variety is ASL. So I believe this is more of a popular notion in Zambia that the ZSL is not ASL, even though to separate the two becomes something that is a little bit problematic. And so I have mentioned that Zambia has not recognized her sign language in their constitution. And I wouldn't know, but I think one thing that got us interested in this is, like I said, the situation that whereby you have a complex or compound linguistic entity that accommodates these other pieces. So ASL is playing a role, and also BSL is playing a role in a way that when you travel towards the north, you see more of the BSL, and when you travel down south, you see more of the ASL in play. And how does this play out? Those that are signing with a mixture of ASL vocabulary that are found more in the south mix up the indigenous with the ASL vocabulary, and those that sign with the BSL vocabulary do the same thing. Now, because of this unique linguistic situation, I learned that it becomes a little bit problematic for sign language interpreters. And of course, there are sign language interpreters in Zambia, and they belong to two separate sign language interpreters body. And I learned that they are working towards unifying this body. There's also a National Deaf Association in Zambia, and the National Deaf Association is also made up of different deaf category, whereby some of them might be called the elites, the educated ones, those who many of whom were hearing and became deaf as adults, and then got themselves acculturated into the deaf community, and so they are using sign language. You will not be surprised that many of them also use speech. So this set of deaf people find themselves in the two worlds, the hearing and the deaf, and so they no doubt will have to be the influential deaf people. And then there is another set, those that became deaf as children, prelingual, and also possibly live in the rural areas and are not mostly bilingual. And of course, generally this is the set or this is the population that we are much more concerned with. And so those that became deaf as adults and are educated are mostly bilingual, and while those that are not bilingual because they possibly may not have gone to school. Then another thing that we want you to know about Zambian deaf community and the sign language situation is that also, just like what I have described in Nigeria, sign language is not taught as a subject in the deaf schools. It is used to teach other subjects, but not taught as a subject. And I can imagine, as some of our contact persons described, how problematic teaching with sign language might be for those that are teaching sign language or those that are teaching the deaf children or the deaf students, because even though the sign language interpreters or the signing teachers, the sign language they use depends on where they learn sign language or which area they live. So if, for instance, a deaf person grew up in the South and must have acquired the sign language variety that's used in the South with much of the ASL vocabulary and happens to relocate to the North, they might find it difficult to begin to cope because the variety is mixed more with the BSL, and I can't imagine how problematic this can be to both the deaf signers and those who are teaching deaf persons. Another thing we learned about the sign language situation and the deaf community in Zambia is that those that grew up in the rural communities generally or mostly grew up with indigenous or the local sign language. And so that is why when they get to school and begin to learn the variety that is more mixed up, so they are somewhat described as bilingual, which I've mentioned, but I'm also really wondering how much bilingual they are if the ZSL is a mixture of the local and either of the foreign base. So depending on the geographical location, so if it is in the south, the ZSL might be a mixture of the local sign language and a lot of ASL vocabulary, while in the north, the ZSL becomes a mixture of the local and the British Sign Language. And so I wouldn't, know the other ones that are playing a huge role significantly here. So there is also a recognition that prior to the colonial time or prior to the independence of Zambia, that the deaf people may have used more of the local without this interference, because it is believed that the introduction of American Sign Language may have come from the proliferation of missionaries who visit Zambia after their independence. But again, the introduction of BSL may have occurred not even in the colonial times, and this theory is based on the fact that historically, from what we know, the missionaries or the during the colonial time, the colonial agents were not very much interested in documenting or following up with the deaf people.
Okay, you heard it all. And I want to go back to the MOU that was signed on Saturday, the 12th of June, 2021. And I want to bring you a few clips of that. Let's go to Zambia.
Zambia, proud and free, land of work and joy. Victors seek the struggles for their rights. We won't, we don't fight. Oh, one, strong and free. Praise be to God. Praise be, praise the great Zambia, Zambia. Zambia, we stand under the flag of our land. Zambia, praise to God. Oh, one strong and free.
Thank you very much. That was the hour.
Also, thank you that given us life and managed to come here for this the signing of memorandum of understanding between Zambia and Deaf Society and SK. We want you to bless this occasion and our program to go smoothly. Father, we ask for your wisdom, and we pray of this to your Son Jesus Christ. Amen. I, the President of Zambian Deaf Society, is surely aware of the increase and the high number of the third wave of Corona. So I'd like to wish everyone to maintain social distance, mask up, so that we can prevent ourselves.
And all who work hard to make this event a reality today, from ZDS, SDELI, different organizations, institutions, and communities. I would not fail to mention my different Obed Mambwe. Thank you so much for this MOU signing will be a milestone in our partnership because it will bring not only organizations together, but countries, cultures, and communities. The MOU we're signing today, along with its accompanying action plan, means our work in line with the goals and targets of implementing the Indigenous Summit and the Zambian Deaf Movement as part of the Summit in cooperation with SDELI is a research-based non-governmental organization that just to be the corporate affairs commission. The past 6 years, SDELI has been pioneering the documentation of indigenous sign languages to the deaf communities in Nigeria, and by extension has been one of the leading organizations in the promotion of indigenous African sign languages. I would like to mention that it is not a coincidence that Zambia is the next country in line to begin the documentation of the indigenous.
So this is the signing ceremony between Zambia Deaf Association, ZDS, and SDELI. Memorandum of Understanding. So between Zambia Deaf Society and SDELI. SDELI serves the deaf and inducts language initiative. So this is the memorandum of understanding. The CEO and the representative of SDELI. Mr. John Ndovu, CEO of Zambia Deaf Society, and the Madam, the representative of SDELI. Thank you very much.
Okay, we're back again, and I want to appreciate Mr. John Ndlovu, the leader of the deaf community in Zambia, for putting up a team that is ready to take up this task. Thank you, Mr. John, for all the effort that you've put so far. I want to thank Ms. Nakasela Nachawe. Nakasela is a very awesome lady, and she's been so passionate about the development of sign language in Zambia. And I want to commend you for all the effort you've put so far. I want to commend all the people, all the deaf individuals. I want to commend my friend and the friend of SDELI, Mr. Obed Mambwe, who also was part of seeing this through. Thank you, Mr. Mambwe. You have been a very great ally and friend. And I'm glad that Africa has you in the front as an activist and a sign language interpreter that is passionate about the development of indigenous sign languages. Thank you so much. So I want to thank all Team SDELI members from Nigeria and across the world. You guys are awesome. And I want to tell you all, our fans and our friends, we are not stopping here. This is in fact the beginning of the expansion of this great task. This is the beginning of the entire work that we have come here to do. Of course, we are looking towards getting into Gabon. We are looking towards getting into Algeria as soon as possible. And we are looking towards getting into any African deaf society or deaf community that is willing to have us work with them. Do you have a passion for the development of your indigenous sign language? Write us at info@sdla.org. Send us an email or send us a comment on this video. Send us a comment on our Facebook channel or Instagram channel or Twitter. Anyhow you can reach us. Let's have a talk. The business we have here is to develop and to promote the indigenous sign languages of African deaf community. And very soon, of course, you know about the Niger Sign App, and very soon you will continue to hear about the Indigenous Hands Sign Language app. Indigenous Hands. All right, it is a pleasure to have been with you today once again and to bring you this good news. And I want you to sit tight because we're going to be bringing you much of what is going to happen in Zambia as long as we go on in this program, because the team is very ready to kick off, and very soon we are going to go into the field. Thank you so much for following us in this channel and for sharing our videos and for liking our videos. Do not hesitate in doing that at any time. I'm gonna see you again next week, and I believe we will be continuing with our interviews with our indigenous deaf signers on the topic learn from your indigenous deaf signers. All right, thank you. See you next week. Bye.
We really want to thank you for coming here, right here at our signing Memorandum of Understanding. We feel it's a very wonderful and important program and a good way. So this Memorandum of Understanding is a program that is born to include Zambian Sign Language, Indigenous Sign Language.
Thank you so much for coming. I'm here in my capacity as the President of Zambia. We want to convey our gratitude to stakeholders that have the of language and better than partners in the Zambia Society. We work together in so many areas where they use they are very happy to support our mother, this support in the Zambia.